So, hello and welcome back to another chapter of Ivanhoe where I'm hopefully not going to have to pause this too often to sneeze because I somehow managed to catch a cold. I don't know how. I felt iffy yesterday. Today I feel terrible. So, we're going to do this. I've never been so happy that it was Thursday before. I'm hoping that I get over this. I'm going to just take a massive nap after I'm done with this. Maybe take some more cold medicine. It's one of those annoying things. And this is a very long chapter, so I will probably be pausing periodically to go get a drink or sneeze. It's just a stupid head cold, but it's annoying. And I blame the weather because, as you can see, we have sun today. I'm excited about the sun, but it's been warm and then it's been cool and then it's been warm and then it's been cool, and we've never had not humidity, whatever. But I'm really enjoying this book now. I have to say, I wasn't expecting that I was going to get as into it as I am, although I do have to quibble. It says, it says right in the opening that this is a romance. Sir Walter Scott, Ivanhoe, a romance. I have yet to see anything romantic happen, unless we're supposed to believe that De Bracy or Dubois Gilbert were being romantic when they kidnapped their maidens fair. I don't find that very romantic. I have yet to see romance. I'm waiting for my romance. But as always, we're going to begin with a quote, which is it's another old play quote. I wonder what old play it is, or if there's just literally a play out there that's just called Old Play. I do believe we have a librarian in our midst, so I'm curious, is there just an old play out there that's named Old Play? The only thing that I can think of with play like that in the title is Cold Play, and that's not the same thing. Anyway, I'm rambling. We're going to jump in and read this quote. Trust me. Each state must have its policies. Kingdoms have edicts. Cities have their charters. Even the wild outlaw in his forest walk keeps yet some touch of civil discipline. For not since Adam wore his verdant apron hath man with man in social union dwelt, but laws were made to draw that union closer. Old Play, which is not Cold Play. Okay, so we've besieged the castle, we've freed the prisoners, and now we're gonna try to make rules? I don't know. But I guess we will find out as we jump back into Sir Walter Scott's Ivanhoe, and we are going to be reading chapter 32. The daylight had dawned upon the glades of the oak forest. The green boughs glittered with all their pearls of dew. The doe led her fawn from the cover of high fern to the more open walks of the greenwood, and no huntsman was there to watch or intercept the stately hart as he placed at the head of the antlered herd. The outlaws were all assembled around the trysting tree in Hart Hill Walk, where they had spent the night refreshing themselves after the fatigues of the siege, some with wine, some with slumber, many with hearing and recounting the events of the day, and computing the heaps of plunder which their success had placed at the disposal of their chief. The spoils were indeed very large, for, notwithstanding that much had been consumed, a great deal of plate, rich armor, and splendid clothing had been secured by the exertions of the outlaws, who could be appalled by no danger when there were rewards in sight. Yet so strict were the laws of their society that no one ventured to appropriate any part of the booty which was brought into one communal mass to be at the disposal of their leader. The place of rendezvous was an aged oak, Not, however, the same which Locksley had conducted Gurth and Wamba in the earlier part of the story, but one which was the center of a sylvan amphitheater within a half a mile of the demolished castle of Torquilstone. Here, Locksley assumed his seat, a throne of turf erected under the twisted branches of the huge oak, and the sylvan followers gathered round him. He assigned to the Black Knight a seat at his right hand, and to Cedric a place upon his left. "Pardon my freedom, noble sirs," he said, "but in these glades I am monarch. They are my kingdom, and these are my wild subjects, who would reck but little of my power were I within my own dominations, yielding any place to anyone else. Now, sirs, who has seen our chaplain? Where is our curtal friar? A mass among Christian men best begin a busy morning." No one had seen the clerk of Coppenhurst. "Over God's forbode," said the outlaw chief. "I trust the jolly priest hath but abidden by the wine pot for a little bit too long. Who's seen him since the castle was taken?" "I have," said Miller. "Marked him busy about the door of a cellar, swearing by every saint in the calendar he would taste the smack of Fondeboeuf's Gascoigne wine." "Now the saints, as many as there be of them," said Locksley, "forfend that he has drunk too deep of the wine butts, and perished with the castle. Go, Miller, take with you enough men, seek the place where you last saw him, throw water from the moat on the scorching ruins. I will have them removed stone by stone before I miss my friar." The ones who hastened to execute this duty, considering it an interesting diversion of spoil was going to take place, were a little sad, but they showed how much the troop had at heart the safety of their spiritual father. "Well, they're gone, let us proceed," said Locksley. "For when this bold deed shall be sounded abroad, the bands of De Bracy, Malvision, and the other allies of Fondeboeuf will be in motion against us, and it were well for our safety that we retreat from the area. Noble Cedric," said Locksley, turning to the Saxon, "the spoil is divided into two portions. Please make a choice which best suits you, to repay your people who are partakers in this adventure." "Good man," said Cedric, "my heart is oppressed with sadness. The noble Athelstane of Coinsborough is no more, the last sprout of the sainted confessor. Hopes have perished with him that can never return. A sparkle hath been quenched by his blood, which no human breath can again rekindle. My people, save the few who are now with me, do but tarry in my presence to transport his honored remains to their last mansion. The Lady Rowena is desirous to return to Rotherwood, and must be sufficiently escorted. I should, therefore, ere now have left this place, and I waited not to share the booty, for so help me God and Saint Withold, as neither I nor any of mine will touch the value of a liard. I have waited just to render my thanks to you and your bold yeomen for the life and honor you have saved." "Nay, but," said Locksley, "we did but half the work at most. The take of the spoil, what may reward your own neighbors and followers?" "I'm rich enough to reward them for my own money," said Cedric. "And some," said Wamba, "have been wise enough to reward themselves. They do not march off empty-handed altogether. We do not all wear the motley." "They're more than welcome," said Locksley. "Our laws bind none but ourselves." "But thou, my poor knave," said Cedric, turning around and embracing Wamba, "how shall I reward you, who feared not to give your body to chains and death in my place? Everyone forsook me, when just Wamba was faithful." A tear stood in the eye of Cedric as he spoke, A mark of feeling which even the death of Athelstein had not extracted, but there was something in the half instinctive attachment of his clown that woke his nature more keenly than even grief. "Nay," said Wamba, pulling himself away from his master's embrace. "If you pay my service with the water of your eye, the jester must weep for company, and then what becomes of his vocation? But, uncle, if you would indeed pleasure me, I pray you to pardon my playfellow Gurth, who stole a week from your service to give to your son." "Pardon him?" said Cedric. "I will both pardon and reward him. Kneel down, Gurth." The swineherd was in an instant at his master's feet. "Theo, and enst art thou no longer," said Cedric, touching him with a wand. "Folk free and scaleless art thou, in town and from town, and in the forest and the field. A hide of land I give to thee and my steeds of Worthington. From me and mine to thee and thine, aye and forever, and God's malison on his head who this gainsays." No longer a serf, but a freeman and a landholder, Gurth sprung to his feet and twice bounded aloft almost his own height off the ground. "A smith and a file," he cried, "to do away the collar from the neck of a freeman! Noble master, doubled is my strength by your gift, and doubly will I fight for you. There's a free spirit in my breast. I am a man changed to myself and all around. Ha, Fangs!" he said, for that faithful dog, seeing his master thus transported, began to jump upon him to express his happiness as well. "Do you know your master still?" "Aye," said Wamba, "Fangs and I still know you, Gurth, though we must needs abide by the collar, and it is only you who are likely to forget us." "I'll forget myself before I forget you, my true comrade," said Gurth. "And if freedom were fit for you, Wamba, the master would not leave you wanting it." "Nay," said Wamba, "never think that I envy you, brother Gurth. The serf sits by the hall at the fire when the freedman must go forward into battle. And what saith Aldheim of Mossbury? Better a fool at a feast than a wise man at a fray." And now I'm going to go get a drink. I'll be right back. Okay, back to it. The tramp of horses was now heard, and the Lady Rowena appeared, surrounded by several riders and a much stronger party of footmen, who joyfully shook their pikes and clashed their brown bills for joy at her freedom. She, richly attired and mounted on a dark chestnut palfrey, had recovered all the dignity of her manner, and only an unwonted degree of paleness showed the suffering she had undergone. Her lovely brow, though sorrowful, bore on it a cast of reviving hope for the future, as well as of grateful thankfulness for the past deliverance. She knew that Ivanhoe was safe. She knew that Athelstein was dead. The former assurance filled her with a most sincere delight, and if she did not absolutely rejoice at the latter, she might be pardoned for feeling the full advantage of being freed from further persecution on the only subject in which she had ever been contradicted by Cedric. As Rowena bent her steed towards Locksley's seat, that bold yeoman with all of his followers rose to receive her as if by a general instinct of courtesy. The blood rose to her cheeks as, courteously waving her hand and bending so low that her beautiful loose tresses were for an instant mixed with the flowing mane of her horse, she expressed in a few but apt words her obligations and her gratitude to Locksley and her other deliverers. "God bless you, brave men," she concluded. "God and Our Lady bless you and requite you for gallantly periling yourself in the cause of the oppressed. If any of you should hunger, remember Rowena has food.
If you should thirst, she has many a butt of wine and brown ale. If the Normans drive ye from these walks, Rowena has forests of her own, where her gallant deliverers may range at full freedom, and never ranger ask whose arrow hath struck down the deer.
Thank you, gentle lady, said Locksley. Thanks from all my company and myself. But to have saved you rewards itself. We who walk the greenwood do many a wild deed, and the Lady Rowena's deliverance may be received as an atonement for that. Again, bowing from her palfrey, Rowena turned to depart, but pausing a moment, while Cedric, who was to attend her, was also taking leave, found herself unexpectedly close to the prisoner de Bracy. He stood under a tree in deep meditation, his arms crossed, and Rowena was in hopes that she might pass him unseen. He looked up, though, and when became aware of her presence, a deep flush of shame covered his handsome face. He stood a moment, most irresolutely, and then stepping forward, took her palfrey by the rein and bent his knee to her. Will the Lady Rowena deign cast an eye on a captive knight, on a dishonored soldier?
Sir Knight, said Rowena, in enterprises such as yours, the real dishonor lies not in failure, but in success.
Conquest, lady, should soften the heart, said de Bracy. Let me but know that the Lady Rowena forgives the violence occasioned by an ill-fated passion, and she shall soon learn that de Bracy knows how to serve her in more noble ways.
I forgive you, Sir Knight, said Rowena, as a Christian.
That means, said Wamba, that she does not forgive him at all.
But I can never forgive the misery and desolation your madness occasioned,
Rowena continued. Unloose your hold on the lady's rein, said Cedric, coming up. By the bright sun above us, but were it shame, I would pin you to the earth with my javelin. But be well assured, you shall smart, de Bracy, for your share in this foul deed. He threatens safety who threatens a prisoner, said de Bracy. But when had a Saxon any courtesy? And then, as he retired 2 steps back, he permitted the lady to move on. Cedric, before they departed, expressed his peculiar gratitude to the Black Knight, and earnestly entreated him to accompany them to Rotherwood. I know, he said, that you errant knights desire to carry your fortune on the point of your lance, and reek not of land or goods, but war is a changing mistress, and home is sometimes desirable, even to the champion whose trade is wandering. You have earned one of the halls of Rotherwood, noble knight. I have wealth enough to repair the injuries of fortune, and all that he has as his deliverer. Come, come to Rotherwood, not as a guest, but as my son or brother. Cedric has already made me rich, said the knight. He has taught me the value of Saxon virtue. To Rotherwood will I come, brave Saxon, and soon, but as now, presuming matters of the moment detain me from your halls, peradventure, when I come hither, I will ask such a boon as will even put your generosity to a test. It's granted, before even spoken, said Cedric, striking his ready hand into the gauntleted palm of the Black Knight. It is granted already, even if it takes half my fortune. Don't make such a promise so lightly, said the knight. Yet well I hope to gain the boon I will ask. Meanwhile, farewell. I have but to say, said the Saxon, that during the funeral rites of the noble Athelstine, I shall be an inhabitant of the halls of his castle at Coinsborough. They will be open to all who choose to partake of the funeral banquet, and I speak in the name of the noble Edith, mother of the fallen prince. They will never be shut against him who labored so bravely, though unsuccessfully, to save Athelstein from Norman chains and steel." "Aye," said Wamba, who had resumed his attendance on his master. "Rare feeding will there be. Pity noble Athelstein cannot banquet at his own funeral. But," he continued, lifting up his eyes, "he is supping in paradise, doubtless doing honor to that." "Peace and move on," said Cedric, his anger at this untimely jest being checked by remembering Wamba's recent services. Rowena waved a graceful adieu to him of the Fetterlock. The Saxton bade Godspeed to him, and they moved through a wide glade in the forest. They had scarce departed before a sudden procession moved from under the greenwood branches, swept slowly round by the sylvan amphitheatre, and took the same direction with Rowena and her followers. The priests of a neighboring convent, in expectation of ample donations, or soul scat, which Cedric had promised, attended upon the car in which the body of Athelstein was laid, and sang hymns as it was sadly and slowly borne on the shoulders of his vassals to the castle of Coinsborough, after that to be deposited in the grave of Hengst, from whom the deceased derived his descent. Many of his vassals had assembled at the news of his death, and followed the bier with all external marks, at least of dejection and sorrow. Again, the outlaws rose and paid the same rude and spontaneous homage to death which they had so lately rendered to beauty. The slow chant and the mournful step of the priests brought back to their remembrance such of their comrades who had fallen yesterday. But such recollections dwell not long in those who lead a life of danger and enterprise, and before the sound of the death hymn had died on the wind, the outlaws were again busied in sharing the spoils. "Valiant knight," said Locksley to the black champion, "without whose good heart and mighty arm our enterprise would have failed, will it please you to take from that mass of spoils whatever it may best serve to pleasure you, and to remind you of my trysting tree?" "I accept," said the knight, "as frankly as it is given. And may I ask permission to dispose of Sir Maurice de Bracy at my own pleasure?" "He's already yours," said Locksley, "and well for him. Otherwise, the tyrant would have graced the highest bough of this oak with as many of his free companions as we could gather. But he's your prisoner, and he's safe enough, though he had slain my father." "De Bracy," said the knight, "you are free. Depart. He whose prisoner thou art scorns to take mean revenge for what is past, but beware of the future, lest something bad fall upon you. Maurice de Bracy, I say beware." De Bracy bowed low and silently, and was about to move, when Yeoman burst at once into a shout of derision. The knight instantly stopped, and turned back, folded his arms, and pulled himself up to full height, and said, "Peace, ye whelping curs, who open upon a cry which ye followed not when the stag was at bay. I scorn your censure, as I would disdain your applause. To your brakes and calves, you thieves, and be silent when a knightly noble is spoken about within a league of your ears." That was very confusing. This ill-timed defiance might have procured for De Bracy a volley of arrows, but for the hasty and imperative interference of the outlaw chief Locksley. Meanwhile, the knight caught a horse by the rein, for several which had been taken from the stables of Fondeboeuf were tacked up near by, and they were a valuable part of the booty. He threw himself into the saddle and galloped away into the wood. When the bustle of this incident was somewhat calmed down, the chief outlaw took from his neck the rich horn and baldric which he had recently gained from the strife of the archery near Ashby. "Noble knight," said Locksley to the Black Knight, "if you disdain not to grace by your acceptance a bugle which an English yeoman has once worn, I will pray you to keep this as a memorial of your gallant bearing. And if you have aught to do, and as often happens to a gallant knight, if you chance to be hard bested in any forest between Trent and Tees, wind 3 times upon the horn, and it may well be that you find helpers and rescue." Then Locksley gave breath to the bugle, and winded once and again the call he had described, until the knight had caught the notes. "Thank you for the gift, yeoman," said the knight, "and better your help than thine and thy rangers would I never be able to find." And then he turned and winded the call until all of the woods rang. "Well blown," said Locksley. "Beshrew me, and thou knowest not as much of woodcraft as of war. You have been a striker of deer in your day, I warrant. Comrades, mark those 3 notes. It is the call of the Knight of the Fetterlock, and any who hear it and does not hasten to serve him at his need, well, I'll have you scourged out of our band." "Long live our leader!" shouted the yeoman, "and long live the Black Knight! May he soon use our service to prove how readily we will be able to pay it." Locksley now proceeded to the distribution of the spoils, which he performed with the most laudable impartiality. 1/10 part of all of it was set aside for the church and pious uses. A portion was next allotted to a sort of public treasury. A part was assigned to the widows and the children of the fallen, or to be expected in masses for the souls of those who had no family. The rest was divided amongst the outlaws according to their rank and merit, and judgment of the chief, on all such doubtful questions as it was ever occurred, and he delivered this with great shrewdness, and it was received with absolute submission. The Black Knight was not a little surprised to find that men in a state so lawless were nevertheless amongst themselves so regularly and equitably governed, and all that he observed added in his opinion to the justice and judgment of Locksley. When each man had taken his own portion of the booty, and the treasurer, accompanied by 4 tall yeomen, was transporting that which belonged to the state to some place of concealment or security, and the portion devoted to the church was still sitting in one spot, "I would," said Locksley, "that we heard tidings of our chaplain. He was never one to be absent when meat was to be blessed or spoils to be partitioned, and it's his duty to take care of these tithes of our successful enterprise. It may be the office has helped cover some of his canonical irregularities. Also, I have a holy brother of his, a prisoner not too far away, and I would like to have the friar help me deal with him. I doubt for the safety of our priest, but I'm a little worried." "I were right sorry as well," said the Black Knight, "for I stand indebted to him for the joyous hospitality of a merry night in his cell. Let's go to the ruins of the castle. It might be that we will learn tidings of him there." While they were speaking, a loud shout among the yeomen announced the arrival of him for whom they were feared, and, as they learned from the voice of the friar himself, he was perfectly fine. "Make room, my merry men!" exclaimed the friar. "Room for your godly father and his prisoner. Cry welcome once more. I come, noble leader, like an eagle with my prey in its clutches. And making his way through the ring, amidst the laughter of everyone around, he appeared in majestic triumph, his huge parzon in one hand, and in the other a halter, one end of which was fastened to the neck of the unfortunate Isaac of York, who was bent down by sorrow and terror, and was dragged by the victorious priest, who shouted, "Where's Allan a Dale, to chronicle me in ballad, or even just a jest? By St. Hegmald, the jingling crowder is ever gone whenever there is a apt theme for my valor." "Priest," said Locksley, "you have been at a wet mass this morning, it seems. In the name of St. Nicholas, who do you have there?" And I'm going to get another drink. Be right back. Okay, I think we can finish this now. "A captive to my sword and my lance, noble captain," said the friar. "To my bow and to my halberd, I should rather say. And yet I have redeemed him by my divinity from a far worse captivity. Speak up, Jew. Have I not ransomed you from the Sathans? Have I not taught you Creeder and Pater and Ave Maria? Did I not spend the whole night drinking to you and in expounding of the mysteries?" "Oh, for the love of God," said Isaac, "will no one take me out of the keeping of this this holy man?" "What's that?" said the friar. "Are you recanting? Think, if you do relapse into your own infidelity, though thou art not so tender as a suckling pig, I would have one to break my fast upon. You're not too tough to be roasted, you know. Be conformable, Isaac, and repeat the words after me. Ave Maria." "No, we will have not this, mad priest," said Locksley. "Let us rather hear where you found this prisoner." "By St. Dunstan," said the friar, "I found him where I sought for better wear. I did step into the cellar to see what could be rescued there, for though a cup of burnt wine with spice be an evening draught for an emperor, it would be a waste, I thought, to let so much good liquor get mulled at once. And I had caught up one runlet of sack, and was coming to call for aid from these lazy knaves, who are ever to be seeking when a good deed is to be done, when I was avised of a strong door. Aha, I thought, here's the choicest juice of all in this secret crypt. And knave butler, being disturbed in his vocation, seems to have left the key in the door. Therefore I went in, and found naught besides a commodity of rusted chains and this man, who presently rendered himself my prisoner, rescue or no. I did refresh myself after the fatigue of all this action with the unbeliever, and I was proceeding to lead my captive forth, when crash after crash, with a wild thunder and levin fire, down toppled the masonry of the outer tower. Mary beshrew their hands that built it not firmer, and it blocked up the passage. The roar of one falling tower followed another. I gave up all thought for life, and deeming it a dishonor for one of my profession to pass out of this world in company with a Jew, I heaved my halberd to beat his brains out, but then took pity upon his gray hair, and judged it better to lay down and take up my spiritual weapons and convert him. And truly, by the blessing of St. Dunstan, the seed has been sown in good soil, only that with speaking to him of mysteries throughout the entire night, and fasting, except for a few draughts of the wine, with which I sharpened my wits, my head is well nigh dizzied, I tell you, but I was clean exhausted. Gilbert and Wobbet know what state they found me in. I was totally exhausted."
"We can bear witness," said Gilbert, "for when we had cleared away the ruin, and by St. Dunstan's help lighted upon the dungeon stair, We found the runlet of sack half empty, the Jew-man half dead, and the friar more than half exhausted, as he claims."
"You knaves, you lie," said the friar. "It was you and your companions that drank up all the wine and called it a morning drink. I'm a pagan. I kept it, not, or I call me a pagan if I didn't keep it for Locksley's own throat. But what recks it? The Jew's been converted. He understands everything I told him, very nearly, if not altogether, as well as I do." "Sir," said Locksley, "is this true? Have you converted to Christianity?"
"May I so find mercy in your eyes," said Isaac, "as I know not one word which the reverend prelate spoke to me of all this night. Alas, I was so distraught with agony and fear and grief that had the holy Father Abraham came to preach to me, he would have found deaf ears."
"You lie. You know you do," said the friar. "I will remind you of one word of our conference. You did promise to give all of your money to our holy order."
"So help me the promise, fair sirs," said Isaac, more alarmed than before. No words ever crossed my lips. I'm an aged beggar man. I fear that I'm childless. Have pity on me and let me go."
"No," said the friar. "If you do retract vows made in the favor of the Holy Church, well, then you have to do penance." Accordingly, the friar raised his halberd, and would have laid the staff of it lustily upon Isaac's shoulders, had not the Black Knight stopped the blow, and thereby transferred the holy clerk's resentment onto him. "By St. Thomas of Kent," said the friar, "before I buckle to my gear, I will teach you, Sir Lazy Lover, to meddle in your own affairs, and leave mine alone." "No, do not be angry with me," said the knight. "You know I'm your sworn friend." "I know no such thing," said the friar, "and I defy you for a meddling coxcomb." "No," said the knight, who seemed to take a pleasure in provoking his host. "Have you forgotten how that for my sake, for I say nothing of the temptation of the flagon and the pastry, how you did break your vow of fasting and vigil?" "Truly, friend," said the friar, clenching a fist, "I'm going to hit you." "I accept talk of no such talk," said the knight. "I am content to take your cuff as a loan, but I will repay you with usury as deep as ever your prisoner there exalted in trafficking." "I'm going to hit you," said the friar. "Wait," said Locksley. "What are you after, mad friar? Fighting beneath our trysting tree?" "Oh, we're not fighting," said the knight. "It is but a friendly interchange of courtesy. Friar, strike if you dare. I will stand your blow if you can stand mine." "You have the advantage with your iron pot on your head," said the friar. "But have at thee. Down you go, even if you were Goliath of Gath in his brazen helmet." And saying that, the friar bared his brawny arm up to the elbow, and putting his full strength to the blow, gave the knight a hit that might have felled an ox. But the knight stood firm as a rock. A loud shout was uttered by everyone all around, for the friar's punch was proverbial amongst them, and there were few who, in jest or earnest, did not have occasion to know its vigor. "Now, priest," said the knight, pulling off his gauntlet, "if I had vantage on my head, I would have none on my hand. Stand fast, stand firm." "Ginam mim didi vaporate. I have given my cheek to the smiter," said the friar, And if you can stir me from this spot, I will freely give you the Jew as ransom." So spoke the burly friar, assuming on his part a high defiance, but who may resist his fate? The punch of the night was given with such strength and goodwill that the friar rolled head over heels upon the plain to the amazement of all, but he stood neither angry or sad. "Brother," he said to the knight, "you should have used your strength with more discretion. I had mumbled but a lame mass before you had broken my jaw, for the piper pays ill that wants the nether chops. None the less, there's my hand in friendly witness that I will exchange no more cuffs with you, having been loser. And now, all unkindness, let us put this Jew to ransom, since the leopard will not change his spots, and he's just going to have to continue being a Jew."
"The priest," said Clement, "is not half so confident of the Jew's conversion, not since he received that punch to the face."
"Go to, knave. What do you mean about conversion? What, is there no respect? All masters, no men? I tell ye, good fellow, I was somewhat toddy when I received the good knight's blow, or I would have stayed standing. But before you think any more of it, you can learn that I can still give as well as take." "Peace on all," said the captain. "And you, Jew, think about your ransom. You need not be told that your race is held to be accursed in all Christian communities, and trust me that we cannot endure your presence among us. Think, therefore, of an offer while I examine a prisoner of another type." "Were many of Fondeboeuf's men taken?" said the Black Knight. "None of note enough to be ransomed," said Locksley. "A set of hilding fellows there were, whom we dismissed to find a new master. Enough had been done for revenge and profit. The bunch of them were not worth a cardew. The prisoner that I am speaking of is better booty. A jolly monk riding to visit his leman, and I be any judge by his horse gear and apparel. Here come the worthy prelate, as pert as a pyet, and coming between two yeomen, was brought before the sylvan throne of the outlaw chief, our old friend, Prior Aymer of Jorvalock." And that's the end of the chapter. I feel like that fight scene between old Friar Tuck, because that's what I'm just going to call him, Friar Tuck, and the Black Knight probably would have been funnier had it been rendered in slightly more comprehensible language. That was funny but hard to read, which is a lot of times my complaint about this. Also, still waiting on the romance. Still haven't seen any romance. Please let me know if there's romance coming, because I'm not buying it. I am enjoying this, though. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I'm not sure if there's going to be a live stream tomorrow. It all depends on how the rest of my night goes, and if I keep my voice. I'm sure this is just a stupid cold. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to have a good night. You guys have a good night too, and I will see you on Monday.